Have you ever wondered what happened after Cain killed Abel? The Bible tells us he was cursed and cast out, but that's where the story gets interesting, because Cain didn't disappear into the desert as many imagine. In fact, he did something completely unexpected. He built the first city in the Bible. That's right, a man marked by God, condemned to wander the earth, somehow managed to gather enough people to build an entire civilization. But who were these people? How was it possible? And most importantly, what happened to all of Cain's descendants? There's a forgotten truth about Cain's lineage that few know. A story of incredible talents, surprising innovations, and a mysterious end that the Bible itself seems to have deliberately left between the lines. Today we'll uncover together the mysteries of Genesis surrounding the city of Cain, his gifted descendants, and why this entire civilization simply disappeared. Get ready, because this story will shake up everything you thought you knew about the early chapters of the Bible. And stay until the end, because I'll reveal a surprising connection between Cain's lineage and one of the most enigmatic events in all of Scripture. Something that could completely change your perspective on human nature and God's plan. The story few tell begins with blood on the ground. Abel was dead, and for the first time in human history, someone had taken a life. Cain looked at his hands, perhaps still trembling, perhaps already planning to lie to God. "Where is Abel, your brother?" Cain's answer echoed through the centuries. "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" But God already knew. Abel's blood cried out from the ground, and judgment came swiftly and definitively. "Cursed shall the ground be unto thee," declared the Creator. "When thou tillest the ground, it shall no more yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a wanderer shalt thou be upon the earth." It was a social death sentence. Cain would be rejected by all, condemned to wander restlessly, homeless, and without a future. But then something extraordinary happened. Cain pleaded, "My punishment is so great that I cannot bear it. Whoever finds me will kill me." And God, in his inexplicable mercy, placed a mark on Cain, a divine protection over history's first murderer. Here lies the paradox that changed everything. The cursed man was also protected. Cain left the Lord's presence bearing both the curse and the mark of preservation. But what would he do with this second chance? What was about to happen would defy all expectations. Cain set out eastward toward the land of Nod, and it was there, in that place whose name means wanderer, that the impossible happened. Man, condemned to wander, stopped wandering. Picture the scene, an unknown, arid, seemingly lifeless territory. Cain walks alone, bearing the weight of the first divine mark ever seen by human eyes. His feet touch the hardened soil, and he knows this land will produce no food for him. But then he began digging, stone by stone, brick by brick. Cain began something never before done, the construction of humanity's first city. Not a tent, not a temporary shelter, a city. But wait, how does one man build a city alone? Who were the people who joined him? The Bible doesn't give us all the details, but we know that other descendants of Adam already existed. Perhaps other sons and daughters unnamed in Scripture. Perhaps people who, like Cain, were seeking a new beginning. The fact is that where there should have been only despair and loneliness, something revolutionary emerged. The first urban civilization in human history was born not from the hands of the righteous, but from the hands of those who had lost everything. And the name of this city, Enoch, the same name as Cain's son. This was no coincidence. Cain was creating more than a city. He was trying to build a legacy. But would God allow the first city in the Bible to thrive under the shadow of murder? The name echoed through the cobblestone streets, Enoch. The city bore the son's name, and the son carried on the father's dream. But what kind of legacy was Cain truly leaving for Enoch, his firstborn? Think for a moment. Would you name the first city you built after your son? Cain wasn't just founding a place to live. He was declaring that his lineage would endure, that his genealogy would have meaning, that his son would grow up to inherit something greater than the curse. Enoch, son of Cain, grew up walking the same streets his father had built with his own hands. Every building told a story of rebuilding. Every wall whispered that it was possible to begin again, even after the worst mistake of your life. But there was a tension in the air. The city was thriving, yes, but on what foundation? The first brick was laid by hands that had shed innocent blood. Humanity's first urban project was born from the hearts of those who had rejected God's original plan. Enoch had to choose. Would he follow the path of redemption that the city symbolized, or would he also inherit the rebellion that had motivated its construction? And more importantly, what kind of children would he father? Biblical genealogy was about to reveal whether Cain's lineage would be remembered for innovation or destruction. What happened next surprised even the most dedicated scholars of Scripture. And then the family grew. Irad was born to Enoch. From Irad came Mehujael. From Mehujael, Methusael. And from Methusael was born Lamech. 5 generations after Cain, something extraordinary was happening in the first city of the Bible. Cain's descendants weren't just survivors, they were innovators. Jabal, son of Lamech, became history's first nomad, the father of those who dwell in tents and raise livestock. Jubal, his brother, invented music. He was the father of all who play the harp and flute. And Tubal-Cain, he forged the first metal, creating instruments of bronze and iron. Wait a moment, do you realize what's happening here? While the lineage of Seth, Adam's third son, apparently led a simple life of worship, Cain's descendants were revolutionizing the world. They created livestock, music, and metallurgy. And since we're talking about creation and innovation, how about you leave a like on this video? It really helps me understand if the content is helpful to you, and it only takes a second. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do so now. We have many more biblical mysteries to explore together, but back to our story. Why did God allow the cursed lineage to become so talented? Could it be a demonstration that His mercy extends even to the descendants of those who have erred greatly? Or was there something deeper going on? Because the Bible shows us that great talents don't always go hand in hand with great hearts. And when we look at Lamech, Enoch's grandson, we discover a disturbing truth about what can happen when talent isn't accompanied by wisdom. Then the unthinkable happened. Lamech, great-grandson of Cain, repeated his great-great-grandfather's mistake. He killed a man, but this time it wasn't a crime of passion. It was calculated coldness. "I killed a man because he wounded me," he declared to his wives, "and a boy because he stepped on me." And then Lamech said something that makes us tremble. "If Cain was to be avenged 7-fold, I will be avenged 77-fold. Violence had multiplied. The first murder spawned a culture of revenge that grew like a weed in Cain's lineage. But here's the mystery that few realize. After this shocking confession by Lamech, the Bible simply stops talking about Cain's descendants. It's as if they disappeared from sacred history overnight. What happened to the forgotten children of the Bible? Why did such a talented, innovative lineage simply vanish from the pages of Scripture? Did the city of Cain still exist? Did inventions continue? Did music still echo through the streets of Enoch? The Bible doesn't answer directly, but it leaves clues. Clues that point to a catastrophic event that was approaching. A judgment that would not spare even the most talented, not even the most creative. What if I told you that the Bible's silence about the end of Cain's descendants was no accident? What if I told you that there's a sinister connection between their disappearance and one of the most mysterious chapters in all of Scripture? The city of Enoch still stood, but something had changed in the air. The streets that once echoed with the sound of Jubal's inventions now whispered with tales of violence. The metal Tubal-Cain had forged into tools began to be used for weapons. The first city in the Bible was also becoming the first violent city in history. Consider the irony. Cain had fled from God's presence to build a civilization, but his civilization was repeating the very mistakes that had caused his expulsion. Murder, rebellion, refusal to accept divine correction. The city of the rejected had become the city of rejection, not just human rejection, but active rejection of divine standards. It was as if every brick in that city screamed, "We'll do it our way," without God. But would God remain silent forever? Cain's hidden history was about to collide with divine justice in a way no resident of that town could have imagined. Because while they built, invented, and multiplied, completely ignoring the Creator's presence, something terrible was being planned in the heavens. An intervention that would change the course of all humanity. And the cursed city, it was directly in the path of this judgment. What seemed like a refuge for the rejected was about to become the epicenter of one of the greatest displays of divine justice ever recorded in human history. Meanwhile, the world had grown. It was no longer just Adam's family scattered here and there. It was entire peoples, complex civilizations, cities rivaling Enoch in size and importance. The pre-flood peoples had created a society that in many ways resembled our modern times. Advanced technology, sophisticated art, complex social systems, and at the center of it all, two distinct groups, the descendants of Seth, who still sought to call upon the name of the Lord, and the descendants of Cain, who had decided to build their own version of paradise on earth. But then the lines began to blur. Genesis 6 gives us a disturbing clue. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. Who were these sons of God, and who were these daughters of men? Many scholars believe that here we have a description of intermarriage between the two lines, the godly descendants of Seth and the rebellious descendants of Cain. The result? A hybrid civilization that combined advanced knowledge with spiritual rebellion. People who knew how to build magnificent cities but had completely forgotten who gave them the ability to build. And it was at that very moment that God looked down upon the earth and saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every intent of the thoughts of the heart of man was only evil continually. Civilization before Noah had crossed an irreversible line. The time of divine patience was coming to an end, and the city of Cain, the ultimate symbol of organized human rebellion, was about to discover that not all human projects survive God's judgment. But the story gets even more complex, because Genesis 6:4 mentions something that makes any reader stop and reread. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown, giants, Nephilim, beings that defied the natural laws of creation. And here comes one of the most fascinating theories about the forgotten mysteries of the Old Testament. Could Cain's descendants have been involved in this forbidden mixture that resulted in the birth of the giants? Consider the logic. Cain had already demonstrated a willingness to defy divine orders. His descendants had created an entire civilization based on human autonomy. If anyone would be willing to cross dangerous spiritual boundaries, it would be them. Some ancient texts suggest that the advanced technology of pre-flood peoples was not just the fruit of human genius, but the result of forbidden knowledge transmitted by beings who should not have been mixing with humanity. Could this explain the sudden disappearance of Cain's descendants from the pages of the Bible? Had they become so deeply involved with corrupt spiritual forces that they completely lost their original humanity? The city of Enoch was not just a symbol of rebellion. It was possibly the center of a cosmic conspiracy that threatened to destroy God's very plan for humanity. And when God looked at this situation, his response was definitive and irreversible. And the Lord said, "I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, for I regret that I have made him." The words echoed through the heavens like a final decree. The flood was coming, 40 days and 40 nights. Waters welled up from the depths and descended from the heavens. a global catastrophe that wiped from the face of the earth every civilization that had flourished since the days of Adam. And what about the city of Cain? Enoch, the first city in the Bible, the masterpiece of antediluvian engineering. The waters rose brick by brick, wall by wall, until not one stone remained upon another. All technology, all music, all metallurgy, everything was swallowed by the waters of judgment. The forgotten children of the Bible were truly forgotten, not by chance, not by historical neglect, but by God Himself, who decided that that lineage would not be part of humanity's new beginning. Imagine the silence that followed, where Jubal's harps once echoed, now only the wind could be heard passing over endless waters. Where Tubal-Cain forged metals, fish now swam among submerged wreckage. The civilization that had rejected God discovered too late that it is impossible to prosper eternally apart from the Creator. But here's the question that haunts us. If God completely erased Cain's lineage from history, why did the Bible bother to tell us about it? What lesson does this forgotten story have for us today? The story of Cain's descendants ended with the flood, but their message continues to echo through the millennia. Because when we look at our own civilization, how many similarities can we find? Advanced technology, we have it. World-changing innovations, we create them daily. Impressive cities that defy the limits of engineering, we build them by the thousands. Art, music, metallurgy, we master all of this and much more. But the question Cain's lineage leaves us with is this: what are we using all these talents for? To draw closer to God, or to try to replace Him? Cain's legacy wasn't just about building a city. It was about the human attempt to create meaning and purpose independently of the Creator. It was about the illusion that we can build our own paradise, define our own values, establish our own rules. And look what happened. No matter how impressive the civilization they built, no matter how talented their inventors, no matter how beautiful their creations, all of it was wiped out of existence when it collided with divine justice. But here's the crucial difference between us and them. We have something Cain's lineage never had. We have Jesus Christ. Where Cain offered the fruits of the earth and was rejected, Christ offered His own blood and was accepted. Where Cain's city was destroyed by the flood, God's city stands forever. The forgotten truth about Cain's descendants isn't just ancient history. It's a mirror that shows us two options. We can use our talents to build our own kingdom, or we can use them to build God's kingdom. The city Cain founded is gone forever, but the choice he represented remains before each of us every day. Will we build for ourselves or for the glory of God? The mysteries of Genesis show us that God has no problem with innovation, technology, or creativity. The problem arises when we use these gifts to try to live independently of Him. Cain's lineage had talent in abundance, but they lacked the most important thing: a heart turned toward the Creator. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. How have you used the talents God gave you? To build your own kingdom or to build His kingdom? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to the channel for more biblical mysteries revealed. Remember, unlike the forgotten children of the Bible, we have a second chance through Christ. No matter how far you've come building your own version of city, it's never too late to come home. Because the God who placed a mark of protection on Cain, even after his worst mistake, is the same God who extends His hand to you today. The difference is that now that hand has nail marks, and they prove that there is no mistake too great for God's love. May we learn from the forgotten story of Cain, build for eternity, and never forget that our greatest talents only find true purpose when they are placed in the service of the one who created us.